The stranger's eyes glinted at Bisi through the flickering darkness. In jarring flashes of light, it looked like the other seats of the bus were empty and charred, as if burned in some long-ago fire. A foul smell of smoke and decay choked the air. Bisi pressed herself against the window, her heart hammering. This couldn't be real. It couldn't. Yet the stranger was still there, inches away, his once handsome face now gaunt and ashen. His lips pulled back into a grin far too wide, revealing teeth that no longer looked human. He leaned closer, and Bisi could feel an impossible chill radiating from him in the hot night. Her stomach lurched. "You can't escape me, Bisi," he whispered. His voice was no longer gentle, it had a hollow, layered echo, as if more than one voice spoke through him. Bisi squeezed her eyes shut, tears escaping down her cheeks. Maybe this was a nightmare. Maybe she would wake up safe at home. A cold touch grazed her shoulder. Her eyes flew open. The stranger's face hovered next to hers now, pale and twisted by something like cruel pity. In a voice only she could hear, he softly hissed the pet name her grandmother always called her, one only family knew. Bisi's blood turned to ice. No stranger could possibly know that name. Earlier that evening, Bisi clutched her raffia bag as she hurried through the nearly deserted motor park in Nigeria. Dusk had settled, the air warm and buzzing with crickets. It was later than she planned, but she couldn't wait till morning. Her grandmother would worry if she didn't arrive home tonight. She spotted a small white Toyota van idling under a flickering street lamp. Its peeling paint and one dim headlight showed its age, but it was the only bus heading towards Asegon that night. A hand-painted sign on the windshield confirmed it, Asegon, last bus. The wiry, middle-aged driver stood by the open door, calling out in a mix of Yoruba and English, Asegon. Last bus going. Only a handful of passengers clambered on at this late hour, a trader woman with a basket of vegetables, a lanky youth with a caged chicken, and an elderly man with a walking stick. Bisi hesitated at the door, recalling her mother's warning on the phone, "Night journeys are risky, oh mommy, my child. If it's late, wait till morning." But tomorrow was market day and she had promised to help Grandma at dawn. She couldn't break that promise. Swallowing her unease, Bisi stepped into the bus. The interior was dim and smelled of old vinyl and petrol. She slid into a middle seat by the window and greeted the elderly man nearby with a soft, "Ikele, sir, good evening." He nodded in return, eyes clouded with age. In minutes, the bus rumbled out of the park onto the narrow road beyond town. The overhead lamp flickered to life, casting a weak yellow glow. Bisi exhaled and tried to relax. She was finally heading home, even if darkness pressed at the windows. They left the last streetlight behind and darkness embraced the bus. Palms and iroko trees flanked the road, their branches forming ghostly shapes against the starless sky. The driver fiddled with the radio, but only static hissed through the speakers in the silence. A few seats ahead, the trader woman quietly hummed a Yoruba hymn. Aside from the rattle of windows and the occasional cluck from the chicken, the night was eerily still. Bisi clutched her bag on her lap. Inside, along with a water bottle and flashlight, she felt the small cloth charm Grandma had given her for protection. She dismissed it as superstition, but on this lonely road she was grateful for it. She touched the pouch lightly and whispered, "I'll be home soon." Suddenly, the bus lurched and screeched to a halt. The driver muttered a curse and leaned out his window. The old man up front called shakily, "What happened?" "Small while," the driver answered. "Road get pothole. Make I check am." Mama swept through the passengers. Bisi pressed her forehead to the window. They had stopped at a narrow bend, bush on both sides. An enormous iroko tree towered at the curve, its gnarled roots jutting into the crumbling road. A chill ran through her, Grandma had a tale of a spirit in an Iroko like this, luring travelers with phantom lights. The driver climbed out with a flashlight. Its beam flitted over the dirt and caught a shape, a nightjar bird, dead on the roadside with wings splayed. The driver hissed a quick prayer and spat on the ground to ward off evil, then got back in. Inside, the trader woman crossed herself. She must have glimpsed it too. Some said nightjars were messengers of the spirits. A hush of unease fell over everyone. All okay, the driver announced as he restarted the engine. With a grind of gears, the bus resumed its journey, leaving the silent Iroko tree behind. Bisi let out a long breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She glanced at her fellow passengers, but they were quiet, the trader fingering her rosary, the old man now asleep, the youth absorbed in his phone. No one met her eye. Only then did Bisi notice a new passenger. In the commotion, she hadn't seen anyone board, yet now a man sat across the aisle just one row behind her, someone who definitely hadn't been at the motor park. He appeared around 30, far too well dressed for this rustic bus in his crisp grey shirt and trousers. The leather-bound book rested on his lap. Perhaps the driver had picked him up along the way, though she recalled no one standing by the road. The man caught her looking. He flashed a warm smile, and Bisi, embarrassed, quickly returned a polite grin and turned away, her heart fluttering with curiosity. After a few minutes, he leaned toward her across the aisle. "Excuse me, please," he said gently. "May I sit there?" He nodded to the empty seat beside her. Bisi blinked and realized the trader woman had gotten off at the last village stop, leaving that seat free. "Oh, of course," she said, shifting her back to make space. He moved over next to her with a polite nod. He smelled faintly of old wood and attar, a surprisingly comforting scent. In the dim light, his features were handsome, with bright, curious eyes. There was something familiar about him that she couldn't place. "Thank you," he smiled, settling in. "I'm Ode, by the way." He offered his hand. Bisi shook it, finding his skin cool to the touch. "I'm Bisi," she replied. He repeated her name softly, Bisi, as if savoring it, and she couldn't help but smile. The other passengers were either asleep or lost in thought, and for a moment it felt like they had the bus to themselves in the hush of the night. As the bus picked up speed on the bumpy road, Ode broke the silence. "Traveling so late is tiring, isn't it?" he said lightly. "I almost missed this bus myself. I'm glad the driver stopped for me back there." "Me neither," Bisi agreed. "I usually avoid night travel, but I need to get home tonight." Ode nodded. "Asegon village, right? That's where you're heading?" Bisi turned to him in surprise. "Yes, that's my village." "How did you know?" He gave a soft chuckle. "I heard you mention it to that trader woman earlier." Bisi remembered she had indeed told the trader. She nodded, accepting the explanation. That made sense. "Asegon," Ode continued. "That's past the river, near the old rubber plantation, isn't it?" "Yes, that's right," she said, a bit impressed. "You know the area." "I've passed through once or twice," Ode replied with a gentle smile. "It's a peaceful place. They say the nights are cool by the river." They chatted for a long while as the bus bumped along the lonely road. Adea's deep, calm voice put Bisi at ease. She told him about her apprenticeship as a tailor in Nigeria and her weekend visits home, and he shared a few funny anecdotes from his own travels. Before she knew it, she was laughing softly at his jokes, surprised at how comfortable she felt with this stranger. After a pleasant stretch of conversation, a calm silence fell between them. Outside, the night seemed even darker and the steady drone of the engine was almost lullaby-like. It was Ade who spoke up again, his tone thoughtful. "You're very close to your grandmother, aren't you?" Bisi turned to him. She had mentioned grandma a couple of times, she realized. "Yes. Very close," she replied. "She raised me." Ade nodded slowly. "She must be proud. Her little bird has grown into a fine young woman." A chill prickled over Bisi's skin. "Little bird." He said it in English, but she knew that name. It was what grandma affectionately called her in Yoruba, Omo Aich, since she was small. No one outside her family knew that. Yes, she does call me her little bird," Bisi said, trying to keep her voice even. She studied Ade's face in the dimness, searching for any sign of how he could know that nickname. Adea's expression was unreadable in the semi-dark. After a bit, he gave a casual shrug. "Perhaps I heard it in passing. Small villages, you know, news travels, even nicknames." He delivered the explanation so smoothly that Bisi's shoulders loosened a little. It was possible, she told herself, perhaps grandma had talked proudly about her little bird to someone, and word got around. She forced a small smile and nodded. The bus continued to jolt along the dirt road. They had crossed the old concrete bridge over the river a few minutes ago, entering Ashagon's district. The night pressed black against the windows, and the only illumination now came from the headlamp slicing through the darkness. A bat fluttered across the windshield, causing the driver to hiss and grip the wheel. An owl hooted from deep in the woods, its cry echoing through the night. Bisi was about to ask Ade something about himself when he spoke again, his voice gentle, almost concerned. "Your grandma gave you a charm for protection, didn't she?" Bisi's breath caught. She had not taken the little pouch out of her bag at all on this trip. "Yes," she answered slowly. "How did you know that?" Ade turned his head toward her, and in the faint glow of the dashboard she saw a small smile on his lips. "I have a keen nose," he said lightly. "I can smell the herbs. It's the sort of thing grandmothers do, no?" Bisi clutched her bag a little tighter. She had opened the pouch briefly earlier in the day, but it was sealed now and tucked away. Could its scent really carry? Her mouth felt dry. "I suppose so," she murmured, not entirely convinced. Bisi's mind raced. How did Ade know so much about her? She struggled to find a reasonable explanation. Perhaps he really had overheard her speaking with the trader or knew someone from Ashgon who gossiped about grandma. Yes, that could be it, she tried to convince herself. But even as she reasoned, the uneasy flutter in her stomach only grew. An uncomfortable silence settled between them now. Bisi realized her heart was thumping harder. She decided to turn the questions on him. "So, Ade, are you traveling all the way to Ashgon? Do you have family there?" He was quiet for a moment, then gave a small shake of his head. "No family waiting. To be honest, I'm not even sure where I'll stop. Sometimes I just go where the road takes me." The vagueness of his answer sent a tiny chill through Bisi. Who rides a night bus with no fixed destination? It was as if he had nowhere he needed to be, yet everywhere to wander. The bus lamps revealed a weathered sign by the roadside, marking entry into Asegon territory. Bisi could already make out a few faint lights of her village ahead through the trees. They were almost there. Just then, Ade spoke, almost to himself. 10 years, it's exactly 10 years tonight." Bisi glanced at him, puzzled. 10 years. He looked straight ahead down the road. "Since the accident," he said quietly. "The tanker explosion on this road. You must have heard about it." A cold heaviness dropped into Bisi's stomach. Of course she had heard of it, an infamous tragedy a decade ago, when a fuel tanker crashed and exploded not far from Ashgan. A bus full of passengers had been caught in the fire. No one survived. I've heard the stories, she said wearily. It was a long time ago. May the souls of the departed rest in peace. Amen, Ade Mamad. The driver up front, oblivious to their low conversation, kept humming as the bus trundled on. The silence between them felt suddenly fragile. Then Ade turned to her, his eyes reflecting a faint light. Do you know, he said softly, I was on that bus. Bisi's breath stalled. She stared at him, not sure she heard correctly. You were. His face was calm and unreadable. I was on that night bus 10 years ago. Coming home, just like you. Bisi felt the blood drain from her cheeks. A strange buzzing filled her ears. But that's impossible. Adea's voice did not waver. No one survived that crash. Not a single soul. A shiver rippled through Bisi. She pressed back against the window, putting a few more inches between them. What are you saying? She whispered, though she already understood. She darted a glance toward the front of the bus. The driver's silhouette bobbed slightly to the radio tune, oblivious to the terror unfolding in the back. They were still miles from town. Bisi's fingers dug into the seat. There was nowhere to go. He turned away, his gaze drifting to the darkness outside. They buried an empty coffin for me. My family mourned. Yet here I am. At that moment, the overhead bulb dimmed and flickered. For a heartbeat, the air was thick with the smell of smoke and burning rubber. In that flicker of light, Bisi imagined the interior was blackened and charred, the seats burned. Its face in the shadows looked ashen and blistered, just for an instant. She gasped and shut her eyes. When she opened them, the lights were steady and the smell was gone, leaving only the hum of the engine. Her pulse was wild. Bisi's shaking hand crept into her bag for Grandma's charm. She held the small pouch tight, silently mouthing a prayer. Her mind raced, heart pounding. A word from her childhood tales rose in her head, Akudaya. A living ghost, a soul walking far from its grave. No, Bisi muttered, refusing to accept what she was hearing. The rational part of her mind screamed that this couldn't be true. But so many strange things, his knowing smile, the nickname, the charm, now fell into place with chilling clarity. She wanted to scream or cry or do something, but she forced herself to stay calm, her voice a broken whisper. What do you want from me? Ade turned back to her slowly. His eyes glimmered with an emotion she couldn't read. Nothing, Bisi, he said softly. Only a bit of companionship on a lonely road. Seeing the fear in her eyes, he offered a sad smile. There's a saying, you know, be kind to strangers, for you never know if it's a spirit in disguise. Bisi had heard that in folk tales. Her heart ached with both fear and a strange sympathy as he continued, you were kind to me. You spoke to me like I was human. That's more precious than you realize. The bus began to slow as the faint lights of Ashagon's main junction came into view. The driver cleared his throat and called back, Madam, no your bus stop be this or. The tires rolled to a crunching halt on the gravel by the dark market square, Bisi stop. She rose on unsteady legs, clutching her bag. Ade remained seated, watching her gently. She hesitated, unsure how to part from this ghostly stranger. Aren't you getting off? She managed to ask. He shook his head. My journey continues elsewhere, he murmured. In the dim light, his face looked pale, almost ethereal. Thank you, Bisi, for listening. Bisi swallowed the lump in her throat. She stumbled toward the aisle. But before she moved further, Ade reached into his pocket and held out a folded piece of paper. Please, he said quietly. Could you give this to my mother? She lives in the next town, Awero, near the church. Her name is Mrs. Folktale. If you find the Anglican priest there, he can lead you to her." Bisi's fingers shook as she took the paper. It felt fragile and worn. I will," she whispered. His lips curved in a grateful smile. "Thank you, little bird." With that, Bisi turned and stepped off the bus into the cool pre-dawn air. Her sandals touched solid ground, and she sucked in a deep breath, hardly believing she was home. Behind her, the bus door closed. The engine revved and the vehicle pulled away, its taillights glowing red in the darkness. Bisi stood by the road, watching as the bus and the stranger vanished into the night. All around her, Ashgon was silent. Not even a rooster had begun to crow yet. Only the distant chorus of crickets kept her company. Bisi realized she was clutching the folded paper in her hand. Under the faint street lamp at the junction, she could just make out the words on it to murmur. Tears stung her eyes. Akudaya's story, impossible as it seemed, was true. A ghost, an Akudaya, had sat beside her on the bus and shared his last wishes. And she was alive and safe to carry them out. At home, her shocked grandmother listened as Bisi, voice trembling, recounted the night's events. Grandma whispered prayers of thanks that she returned safely, and held her while she wept for the wandering soul that had found her. A few days later, guided by her grandmother, Bisi traveled to Iwara. She found the Anglican priest and, through him, Mrs. Folktale, Akudaya's mother. The frail old woman's eyes filled with tears when Bisi placed the worn letter into her hands. It had been written by her son shortly before his last journey, a message of love and farewell that never reached her until now. In that moment, Bisi realized why fate had placed her on that bus. She had become the bridge between a restless spirit and the closure he sought. Ade's mother squeezed Bisi's hands and thanked her over and over, confirming through tears all that her son had told Bisi. 10 years after the tragedy, his memory lived on, and now, perhaps, his soul could finally rest. That night, back in Asigon, Bisi sat with her grandmother under the stars. They said little, but as Grandma held her hand, she softly repeated an old saying, "The spirit world is never far, it watches from just beyond the firelight." Bisi would never forget the stranger on the bus, the Akudaya who had smiled like a friend and revealed himself like a nightmare. Not every traveler in the night is alive, she realized, and not every story is meant to be dismissed as myth. Sometimes, the line between the living and the dead is as thin as a veil of midnight. As she closed her eyes to rest before the dawn, Bisi sent a silent prayer into the darkness, a prayer for Akudayi, wherever his spirit wandered. And in the quiet that followed, as the first rooster crowed and morning light approached, she felt a gentle breeze rustle the leaves, almost as if in answer, before the night finally gave way to day.